everyone to week 2, day 2 of the LEC Spring Split live from Berlin, Germany. As we're already approaching the halfway point of the regular season where teams are fighting.
Oh my god, it's LEC!
Oh my god, wait.
Oh!
Okay, knocking down the Baron. Good job.
KO.
They always deliver. And
now Astralis.
Astralis is coming also to the studio as this will be our first game of the day. I'm Laure, joined by GB and Ender. How are you doing?
Doing great, you know? I
Awesome.
feel like every time we get a BDS intro, my energy
really
just
hyped.
instantly goes up.
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
You're okay. Well,
Oh.
nice to have you.
Just
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you, GB. Ready for day 2, as we said. But before we get on to the first segment, LEC, let's remind ourselves of Ender's wonderful presentation yesterday, G2 versus Koi. Let's check it out.
Right here to dominate the games. I can't believe it. It's absolutely insane. But the solution is clear. From all of the research we've conducted through my own personal experience, ban Draven. Right, people? Exactly.
Hey! Look, they want to ban Draven! Wow.
Hans Summer finds some solace in the fountain, but all he'll be sipping is tears of defeat as Comp takes the Nexus and Koi take the win.
Bias against G2. Leaking the strats like this, the most obvious ones.
Yeah,
but,
I don't know who that guy was, but that was kind
yeah.
of cringe, I'll be honest.
I have to say I'm impressed by the amount of ideas you have and that you come up with every time. But focusing more on the LEC here, we would like to help out other teams in need of such insightful advice, mainly focusing on the bottom 3 teams here in the standings, focusing on Fnatic at first. Okay, guys, what kind of advice can
We
we
need a
give
simple
them?
fix.
Simple fix
for
the
Fnatic.
easiest fix for them.
Listen, I'm no public speaker like you,
Okay.
but easy fix for Fnatic in the beginning, fix that early game. Don't grieve the first 5 to 10 minutes of the game, and you should be more smooth sailing.
Hold on.
I don't think it's easy
That's kind
enough.
of complicated, though, because like, there's a lot of things going wrong in there. But I agree. The early game needs some work. I would say maybe don't get hooked at level 1 playing Caitlyn Lux. That would be my first step for Fnatic.
Okay, so the first skirmishes maybe
Listen.
and how to handle them. Is this simple enough advice, Chibi? I mean, they're in pain right now. I have a hard time finding.
I feel like it's something that could go on the Korean advice bench, but I think it's more complicated than that, of course. I think Fnatic as a team right now, even when they get a lead, it just feels like elsewhere on the map, instead of you getting that lead, you get it multiplied by just mistakes or anything else, making sure that that lead you got is actually nullified and even worse.
Don't int. Play the early game well. That's the simple advice. I have to say the game we saw from them yesterday was maybe the best one so far. We'll see how they can continue with that coming into today. Second team we want to talk about here is Excel. Is there an easy fix for Excel, and what would it be?
Well, the first easy fix is just stop drafting for mid 2v2 when you don't play for mid 2v2. This is going back all the way to day 1 of week 1 of game 1 of the winter split where Excel were picking Ahri Vi. They picked it last week again as well, but they don't play through mid. This is a kill map of where they get kills on the map. You can see before yesterday, there was only 1 kill in mid. They added 1 to that column, but you can see all the action where there are ganks going down, counter ganks, this stuff. It's around top side mostly and bot side, so I just disagree with this draft approach of Excel to keep trying to play heavy through VTO.
And for me as well, like, I'm fine if you do it, but then my simple advice is send it. I need you to just, when you have these tools for yourself, completely just say, you know what, we have to go for it. We can look at the draft right now, and if I'm playing, for example, Nautilus in this situation, I'm looking at my laning phase, I'm seeing to myself, I'm playing against Seri, I'm playing against Rakan, I'm feeling good into this one. There's an insane amount of lockdown. We have Yone, we have Sejuani. This composition is designed to just run at them and kill them. So it should be simple, but they hesitate.
Yeah, I mean, we had Limit running into mid lane and then just sitting there waiting because his Hex Flash was coming off cooldown. It was very strange, but I mean, I think this whole like mid jungle thing goes back to preseason where there was a little bit of concern or wondering what does jungle look like, because Xerxes maybe a little bit more passive or looking to counter gank, counter jungle, these types of things, as opposed to playing super aggressively on his own. And VTO got so much support from Zanzara around mid, where was going to be, you know, someone changing style to fit the other. That hasn't happened this split, but they're drafting like it has, which is super strange.
But let me ask you this then. When you look at the draft as we saw just previously, do you think it's an easy one to execute though? when you see that the team is not functioning well as it is?
I think it depends on the player, but if I think that would have been a draft that I would feel confident in with the players. So just, as I said, you just want to go in. And we did see it in the mid game. Like, V2 had some good shines of life as well. And I think they had some good fights too, punishing the mistakes of Team Heretics. The problem was just it came way too late. So it's not necessarily fully draft for me. It's just the fact how you play it.
What about Team Heretics?
I would say there's a lot of AD against a Scion. That's my one concern there a little bit. But I think we've seen similar things with Heretics, though, which you're kind of alluding to, where
what is it?
I need them to make it simpler for themselves, right? Because Jankos is always getting leads for the team in the early game, and then they throw it in the mid game with poor team fights, poor decisions made. So draft simple scaling and very obvious to execute team fights, and I think they're going to increase their odds of pulling away wins way higher.
I think it's a short-term solution as a team because you don't fix what necessarily is the pain point for this team, which a lot of it is the early game planning and all of that. But if you draft the scaling aspect, like we saw yesterday, then you can at least get past that maybe top 8 finish line, and then you can work on the other things.
It's going to be an important day coming for this team today, as they only have 1 win so far. Let's see if they can score other ones coming in today too. But on the other half of the standings, the undefeated Vitality will face off against the reigning champions G2 Esports tonight in the LG Ultra Gear match of the week.
Me against Perks is like the battle of the best mid laners.
Before he was there, I was just kind of better than everyone else, and then he came and challenged that.
I was the first mid laner to make Perks feel like he was on an international tournament in Europe.
I'm gonna smash him so hard that he's gonna think that it's an international tournament.
Just the most success we've had was when we played together as well.
And we won MSI, went to World Finals.
Even though I haven't made it out of groups since we haven't played together and he hasn't.
But now he's back on the opposition, and this is like my region right now.
Man in 7 layers of hell! Underneath the tower they dive! Hylissang will not survive! A double for Caps and clean up for G2!
I have his team with all the trophies, and he has to prove himself if he wants to challenge us.
Get out of the pit, boys! One shot going to the mid asteroid! Oh my god! The Aurelian soul damage!
This is definitely the best team I've had in a long time. I'm like the biggest Inter in the world, and I have like high KDA, so there's definitely something going good.
They're for sure getting very, very cocky right now. So I really want to like bring them back down to earth, humble them a bit, because I think they need it.
An amazing matchup ahead. Maybe the most anticipated one here in spring. We had high expectations coming from this team in winter, but I think this is the peak form we had so far from them this week.
For sure. I mean, after G2 winning winter and the second Vitality signed upset, I think like 80% of the community was just like, oh, we got our spring finalists right here. This is very highly likely a preview of what's to come in the BO5s later.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, we could even say that last bit as well, because the regular season was so good. They finished third for struggle in the group stages and playoffs. But with upset in the bot lane, you have to be excited.
It's a different story, and it's a different team and dynamic now. And I'm really interested, especially on this bot lane, because coming into winter, Hansama's objective was to become the best ADC in Europe, which he was. But with upset joining in the league now, contested position maybe. For
I'm so excited about this matchup specifically because Hansama came back and, you know, he had a bad year in NA, but now he completely took over Europe, won his first title. The thing was, well, it was upset in winter. That's right, he wasn't anywhere. He was on the bench, and now he's finally back in spring, and you can even see it with the start he's had. You can even look at the stats here. He's been performing so phenomenally well, and I'm excited to see these two duke it out on the Rift because it's the most anticipated matchup for me.
Upset is absolutely nuts. Just insanely mechanically gifted, a very strong laner, very strong team fighter as well. And I think that like individually, again, it's just been 4 games so far. I've seen him shine so much. I think Hansama has worked into this G2 system super well. Is a fantastic duo lane with Mickey. But in terms of raw talent, I have to give it to Upset here coming into the match.
The last time these two players faced against each other was in 2021 summer playoffs, Fnatic versus Rogue. Fnatic won 3-0. I'm interested in seeing how much these players have evolved as they will match against each other once again today. But focusing on the bot lane a bit more, the LEC segment you made yesterday opens a question to me. Hans on Draven versus not on Draven. is he the same player?
All right, look here. Hans on Draven,
Overreactions.
he's like the best player in the world, right? It's like FLICKR LeBlanc, you know? You don't want to give him that champion, but he is still, I mean, he was the best AD carry in winter here in the LEC. So this is not a situation where off of Draven, he's weak by any means. He is still the top of the top.
I completely agree, and I think some will have recency bias from the Ashe game yesterday. They still won it down bot lane, 2v3 them, got kills as well. They just struggled to elevate their leads in the mid to late game as well, but I also just think there's other champions. We've seen the MF, how he busted that out in groups playoffs. We've seen the Samira as well. Granted, it is nerfed a little bit now, but the fact is that there is a lot of other champions that wants to do what, well, Handsummer wants to do in lane, so I don't think he's gonna get hurt just by not having the Draven there.
He's got a lot of options, but hopefully he's going to get challenged here in the bot lane from the undefeated Vitality. But this will be Game 5 later today. But coming up first, we have BDS versus Astralis, another matchup that I'm really interested in. BDS on a 3-game win streak now. They popped off in winter, but I was surprised as to how much they could continue this coming into spring, but they've delivered so far.
Oh, they absolutely have, you know, just a little bit of a week here, but I think that BDS, for me, it's been really nice to see a little bit elevation of consistency throughout, to see if it was, you know, just going to be a one-split fluke thing. No, that's absolutely not the case. I think this team has a lot of legs to try and even break out of sort of middle of the pack territory where they have been and try to challenge for some of the higher spots in the league.
And I also just think that they have their fundamentals in check, and that's why we see them be better than a lot of teams right now, because a lot of teams are struggling, and BDS, as you said, they've really evolved from out winter to now as well. There's a good reason to be excited about this team.
BDS and Astralis as well, and to me, all of this also comes down to the rookie players you have in the jungle that I have the pleasure of watching in the LFL, and for me, it came as a surprise to see how both these players have grown. When I think of Shio, for instance, discovering him in the LFL last year, I knew he was an up-and-coming player, and I wasn't expecting him to succeed so much in the LEC, but he's been instrumental when it comes to BDS early game especially.
I think both junglers here really have a point where they had expectations going into the LEC. Shio's was a lot more positive than 113's was, but either way, they have both exceeded those expectations, right? And you can see at Shio's, he's been one of the reasons why BDS is performing so well in the early game. Even going into winter, he would always find some wacky level 1 invade or something to play off. Now he's a bit more reserved, but still getting his laners like the bot lane ahead.
And you have to remember, these players are like stepping in against so much jungle talent in the LEC. It's absolutely stacked here, so the fact they are performing is super impressive.
Definitely, and especially when it comes to 113, who was heavily criticized last year in the LFL within K-Corp and blamed for some of the issues going on with the team, but the fact that he grew so much in the LEC and that he got to experiment similarly to Shio and be creative, I think he's been instrumental to Astralis' success so far, and especially in setting up the laners.
I think it's the evolution of it, right? He still tried to come in with the Viego, much like we saw in the LFL, and it didn't really work with this style he was very, very adamant on. But I think now he's been willing to actually evolve that champion pool himself, and I think you see that as well, being aggressive, seeing the confidence in him that we might not have seen in the beginning.
How do you rate the importance of that bot lane is going to have today? We were talking about the junglers. They set up bot lane in winter, but I think the story is a bit different this time, especially when you think of Astralis.
Yeah, I mean, at least for me with BDS, right? We've seen Shio, he's one of the junglers that paths the most down towards that bot side to get Crowny and Laprof ahead, and for good reason. Both Crowny and Laprof has been absolutely amazing. On the other side of Astralis, it's a bit of a different story.
Yeah, with Leader coming into this team, I think there's a lot more focus around mid. You can see even with the roams into the enemy jungle fighting very close to Leader. Leader ends up getting the insane escape here to 113 as well. But I think specifically because of Leader's champion pool, today's matchup gets really interesting, because I think for Astralis there will be more attention around mid, but if there's a roaming support for BDS, then you have the option. Get bot lane ahead early, get that support out of bot lane, get it into mid lane, and you can shut down any of the aggression out of a guy like Leader.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, right? Because how much will Jonghoon be allowed to roam against a guy like Crowny? You can see his forward percentage right now. How far ahead he is in the lane. He's the second most high-rated player. The first one is Handsummer for good reason, but it still is the AD carry who's really willing to take the resources of his team and really carry the game with them.
Yeah, and we'll see if BDS can keep their win streak going and move to 4 wins in a row now. Let's find out with the forecaster pair of the day, Dagda and Quickshot. Take it away.